The changes in Armenia's constitution that caused a political uprising and leadership change. Considering that the president of the period, Serge Sargsyan, could not be nominated for the presidency in the 2018 election according to the Armenian constitution, after serving as the president for 2 terms, despite the opposition's reactions, the changes he made in the constitution envisaging a transition from the presidential system to the parliamentary system. This way, Sargsyan tried to extend his leadership in the country. As a result, the new constitutional amendments caused riots in the Armenian capital and led Sargsyan to resign. Political parties have more effects on Georgia and Armenia's sovereignty, governed by a parliamentary system. With the amendments made in both states' constitutions, these republics, which were in the presidential system, later transitioned to a parliamentary system. With this, the effects of political parties in the state administration increased. Whether in Georgia or Armenia, political parties participate in the parliamentary elections as alliances. The Civil War in Georgia. The extreme nationalist attitude of Zviad Gamsa Kurdia, who assumed the office of president due to democratic elections after gaining independence, disturbed not only the ethnic minorities living in Georgia but also the Georgian people. Besides, if we consider South Ossetia and Abkhazia's problems, this policy further complicated the country's already bad political and military situation. In addition, if we think of problems such as South Ossetia and Abkhazia, this policy further complicated the already bad political and military situation in the country. Taking advantage of this situation, the opponents of Gamsa Kurdia, especially pro-Russia politicians, united against Gamsa Kurdia, who carried out a Western-oriented policy independent from Russia and started an armed struggle. The ethnic problems in the South Caucasus. The crisis that started as the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict later turned into a war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and this war deeply affected the domestic politics of both Azerbaijan and Armenia. The massacre committed by Armenians in the town of Khojaly in Karabakh caused the reaction of the Azerbaijani people, and the president at that time, Ayaz Mutalibov, had to resign as a result of these reactions. The Alchaibi rule, which came to power after Mutalibov, also faced pressure from the opposition due to the occupation of the city of Kelbajar by the Armenians, and these reactions later resulted in a coup against the domination in Ganja with the help of foreign powers. In Armenia, although the Nagorno-Karabakh lands were occupied during the period of President Tur Petrosyan, the opposition pressured Tur Petrosyan, who was preparing to have diplomatic negotiations towards the end of the 1990s due to the pressure of international organizations, to resign. With this problem, the Karabakh clan, which has become a power in Armenian politics, has claimed the rule. The inability to solve the problems of South Ossetia and Abkhazia in Georgia and the expansion of the conflicts and the military intervention of Russia caused the weakening of the rule of Mikhail Saakashvili, who came to power as a result of the Rose Revolution, and the decline of the political forces that he led after the presidency period in Georgian political life. Although all 3 states preferred the presidential system in the first years of their independence, the republics of Georgia and Armenia made changes in the form of governance by changing their constitutions. Since 2018, both states are governed by a parliamentary system. In Azerbaijan, the governing style has been in the form of a presidential system since the first days of independence. The limitation of the president's right to be elected twice, which was present in the constitution, was abolished in the amendments, and this change paved the way for the current president in the next elections. All 3 regimes currently in service in the South Caucasus republics have gone through different stages. Georgia experienced a civil war within this state, and its elected president had to leave the country after this war. A few years later, with the Rose Revolution, the country experienced a change of authority again. In Armenia, on the other hand, although the sovereignty was initially in the hands of the forces struggling for the independence of the country, later the Karabakh clan gained more political dominance and took the power. Although they took steps to extend their rule with the constitutional amendment, they had to resign due to the reaction of the people against this situation. The president, elected as a result of democratic elections in Azerbaijan, was forced to leave his position after the coup that took place a year later. The political forces that came to power by taking advantage of the internal turmoil created by the coup, later legitimized their rule and have continued to rule. Elchibey, who was arrested by the Soviet regime as a nationalist who propagandized against the USSR during the 1970s and was banned from teaching at the university after being released from prison, played an important role in organizing nationalist students and intellectuals towards the dissolution of the USSR. Elchibey, the undisputed leader in the struggle for independence of Azerbaijan, was the first democratically elected president of the Republic of Azerbaijan. On June 7, 1992, the democratic and transparent presidential elections were held for the first time in Azerbaijan. The leader of the AHC, Abulfaz Elchibey, was elected as the president of Azerbaijan with 59% of the votes. Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, established the Minsk Group to solve the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, is the world's largest security-oriented intergovernmental organization. Its mandate includes issues such as arms control, promotion of human rights, freedom of the press, and fair elections. It employs around 3,460 people, mostly in its field operations but also in its secretariat in Vienna, Austria, and its institutions. It has its origins in the 1975 Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe, CSCE, held in Helsinki, Finland. The OSCE is concerned with early warning, conflict prevention, crisis management, and post-conflict rehabilitation. Its 57 participating countries are located in Europe, Northern and Central Asia, and North America. The participating states cover much of the land area of the Northern Hemisphere. It was created during the Cold War era as an East-West forum. Birth of Armenian problem. During the Ottoman-Russian War that started on April 24, 1877, Russia took advantage of the Armenians living in eastern Anatolia, and in return, the Armenian National Assembly, which was chaired by the Armenian Patriarch Nurses Varjabidayan, was sent to the Ikmayazan Cataligos to be given to the Tsar of Russia. It decided to send a memorandum. In this memorandum, there were demands for the regions from eastern Anatolia to the Euphrates River not to be returned to the Turks but to be annexed by the Russians, and if this did not happen, the concessions to be given to Bulgaria should also be given to the Armenians. In addition, in the event of evacuation of the occupied lands, it was requested from the Ottoman government to obtain a financial guarantee for the reform and the continuation of the Russian occupation until the implementation and completion of this reform. During the peace negotiations that continued in Ayasty-Fanos after the 1877–1878 Ottoman-Russian War, nurses and some Armenian notables personally met with the president of the Russian Executive Committee, Grand Duke Nicola, the Tsar's brother, and succeeded in putting an article on Armenians in the treaty. As a matter of fact, Tsarist Russia, which had a say over Orthodox Christians in the Ottoman Empire geography with the 1774 Kukuk-Kainarksa Agreement and the 1829 Edirne Agreement, gained the right to protect the Armenians with the 16th article of the Ayasty-Fanos Agreement signed after the 1877–1878 Ottoman-Russian War. Thus, the Armenian issue entered the agenda of international politics. Karabakh clan and massacre in the Armenian parliament. An armed group of 6 people led by Nari Unanyan, one of the former members of the Karabakh movement, raided the parliament and murdered 8 people, including then Prime Minister Vazgen Sarkisian and Parliament Speaker Karen Demirchan. Contract of the Century. The agreement has been signed in Gulistan Palace of Baku on September 20, 1994, which was later named as the Contract of the Century due to its tremendous importance. Production sharing agreement related to the development of Azeri Chirag, Gunchli deep-water oil fields has been reflected on 400 pages in 4 languages. 13 companies, Amoco, BP, McDermott, Unocal, Sokar, Lukoil, Statoil, Exxon, TPAO, Pennzoil, Itochu, Ramco, Delta, from 8 countries, Azerbaijan, USA, Great Britain, Russia, Turkey, Norway, Japan, Saudi Arabia, have participated in signing of the contract of the century. This contract has paved the way towards to the signature of other 26 contracts with 41 oil companies from 19 countries. Heydar Aliyev, 1923 to 2003. With a career advancement starting with the Azerbaijan Soviet Intelligence, KGB, presidency continued until the candidacy of Azerbaijan SSR Communist Party and finally, Politburo candidacy, Heydar Aliyev returned to politics after the dissolution of the USSR, and continued his duty as the head of the independent Azerbaijan Republic from 1993 until his death in 2003. By preventing all the blows against him in domestic politics, he completely cleansed the political scene from the armed opposition and left a strong power to his son, Ilham Aliyev, who came to power after him. Ilham Aliyev, 1961. Ilham Aliyev, who came to power after the death of Heydar Aliyev, has consolidated his power inherited from his father with some steps and has been successfully maintaining his rule for 17 years. The successful operations of the Azerbaijani army in the Azerbaijani territories occupied by Armenia in the autumn of 2020 led the people to see Ilham Aliyev as a national hero. Eduard Shevardnadze, 1928–2014. Eduard Shevardnadze worked as the first deputy to Minister of Public Order Protection of Georgia, was Minister of Internal Affairs of Georgia until 1972 from July 25, 1972, First Secretary of Tbilisi Party City Committee, from September 29, 1972 until July 6, 1985, was First Secretary of the Central Committee of Georgian Communist Party. Zviad Gamsa Kurdia, 1939–1993. Protest to the Soviet Union regimen by young Zviad Gamsa Kurdia and his friends was revealed in 1956 year. They published proclamations in Tbilisi's streets and blamed Soviet Union for bloody intervention in Hungary. In 1978, the Congress of United States nominated Zviad Gamsa Kurdia as Nobel Peace Prize official nominee for the merit of human rights and dissident movement. New Georgian Supreme Council held the first session on November 14 of 1990 and elected Gamsa Kurdia as a chairman. Zviad Gamsa Kurdia was elected as the President of Georgia, what was confirmed with the results of presidential elections on May 26. He died on December 31, 1993 in village Zabula, Tsalanjika region. He was interred in village Jikashkar and soon was reinterred in Grozny. Mikhail Saakashvili, 1967. Mikhail Saakashvili graduated from the Institute of International Relations of Kiev with honors and then enrolled at Columbia University in New York via the Edmund S. Muskie Graduate Fellowship Program. In 1995 he received a master's degree in law. In the same year he received an honorary diploma in comparative law of human rights from the International Institute of Human Rights in Strasbourg. In 1995 to 1996 he studied at the George Washington University National Center of Law. In 2003, Mikhail Saakashvili, Zurab Javania and Nino Burjanadze called together the society to protest the rigged elections. This ended with Rose Revolution and resignation of President Eduard Shevardnadze in 2003. Levon Ter-Petrazan, 1945. Levon Ter-Petrazan, born in Aleppo, played an important role in Armenia's struggle for independence, and is the first democratically elected president of independent Armenia. During the Ter-Petrosian period, the armed forces of Armenia occupied the Azerbaijani lands, and Ter-Petrosian, faced with the pressure of international organizations, was forced to resign by the Karabakh clan when he was preparing for the peace talks. Robert Cook Aryan, 1954. One of the leaders of the Karabakh clan who forced Ter-Petrazan to resign, Robert Cook Aryan, the second president of Armenia, was born in Konkendi, Azerbaijan. During the years when he was the head of state of the unrecognized Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh, Cook Aryan was also an important voice in Armenian politics. The murder of his political opponents in a terrorist incident in the parliament during Kacharyan's presidency damaged his political image. Serge Sargsyan, 1954. Serge Sargsyan, the third president of Armenia, was also born in Konkendi, a city of Azerbaijan. Sargsyan, one of the important figures of the Karabakh clan, could escape the influence of the leader of the clan, Aryan, during his presidency, and gave the impression that the country was mostly under the rule of the clan leaders. Nikol Pashinyan, 1975. Nikol Pashinyan, whose name was not mentioned in Armenian politics until 2018, was out on the streets during the popular uprising that opposed Sargsyan's retake of the sovereignty after the changes in the constitution, and although he was the leader of a political union with only 9 deputy seats in the parliament, he was elected prime minister under the pressure of the people. His Western-oriented policy was not welcomed by Armenia's main ally in the region, Russia. The separate organization Ataman Nihaz operated in South Ossetia. The president of Georgia, Eduard Shevardnadze, resigned after the Rose Revolution. Abkhazia was separated from Georgia by the Lakhni Declaration adopted on March 18, 1989. Ultranationalism policy of the first president of Georgia, President Zviad Gamsa, caused dissatisfaction not only of Georgia's ethnic peoples but also of the Georgian people. The center of the World Armenian Gregorian Church is in Etchmiadzin. The Treaty of Turkmenchay was an agreement between Qajar Iran and the Russian Empire, which concluded the Russo-Persian War, 1826–28. It was signed on February 10, 1828 in Turkmenchay, Iran. The treaty made Persia cede to Russia the control of several areas in the South Caucasus, the Yerevan Khanate, the Nakhchivan Khanate and the remainder of the Dalish Khanate. The boundary between Russian and Persia was set at the Aras River. The territories are now Armenia, the south of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Nakhchivan, and Idri province, now part of Turkey. After the Turkmenchay agreement, Armenians were relocated to the Caucasus, Azerbaijani territories. Karabakh Treaty is a contract confirming the integration of the Karabakh Khanate into the Russian Empire. The signing ceremony took place on May 14, 1805 in a Russian military camp on the banks of the Karabakh River, not far from Ganja. The agreement was signed by Ibrahim Kalilkhan and Commander-in-Chief of Georgia, Infantry General Pavel Tsitsianov, on behalf of Emperor Alexander I.